Hi there, yeah, that's right, my name's Nick Dutch and I'm back on the camera yet again, one more time. Hi there, how the heck's it going? I really have to think about another introduction at some point, but I'm not doing that right now. It's going to be another video on the subject of prayer. Why? Because people just don't seem to get it or understand it. This is just a video I'm doing with a nice cup of tea, so I'm doing this more like a conversation with you. Alright, there's no script, no nothing, just one 36-year-old guy, a few strange ideas rattling around on the inside of my mind, and one nice cup of tea. So, cheers. I've been doing these videos about prayer, and I think that people can misunderstand what I'm driving at and what this can actually be used for. If I was to turn around to you and say something like, prayer is actually a rational thing to do, there's a certain section of society, or YouTube society, who will turn around to me and say, well, what are you talking about? You're saying you're talking to an invisible sky fairy or sky daddy or whatever they want to call it, is rational. How on earth can you say that? Well, that's when you got to separate beliefs and assumed beliefs away from the action in question and think about what the action in question, namely prayer, is there to achieve, and if it is there to achieve anything in particular. Now, if we were to think about prayer as a psychological exercise, that would automatically make an awful lot more sense to people, because humans process information in a massive spectrum of different ways. Sure, we're all educated people. We all like to think that we deal with the world in a perfectly logical, rational, educated way all the time. But in practice, are we really like that? No. We build up associations, we develop obsessions, we connect ideas. And as a result of that, all of these things can have an impact upon the way in which we deal with life and with the issues within life. When I'm dealing with a customer who's got a strong obsession with something, for instance, someone who is in a strong relationship bond with someone who's not treating them well, you know, for instance, a wife who's been beaten up by her husband on a daily basis, but she still loves him, that can be difficult, and it appears that the thing which is holding them together is her love for him, and not the fact that he's treating her in a manner which is intelligent, because he's not treating her in a manner which is intelligent. He's being a nasty piece of work and beating the crap out of her, okay? So the issue in question is the association and the bond which she has with him, and the fact it's so strong, it's holding this relationship together, even though there's a lot of nastiness going on. So what I'd recommend to that person is to use prayer, literally getting on their knees, talking to a higher power, whether it exists or not. And I would also tell the client, it doesn't matter whether God does exist or doesn't exist, it's the exercise which is good for you. And I would ask the client to, when they pray morning and night, to ask for the love for this individual to be taken away. I would also say to the client that this God, whether it exists or whether it doesn't, is very good at taking away from you an emotional problem if you can identify it to this hypothetical being and tell this hypothetical being what it is, and then ask for it to be removed. Now, for those of you who know something about neuro-linguistic programming, maybe this would actually make some sense to you, okay? I mean, it might not, but it's kind of like a counterintuitive way of dealing with things. I also have people who are calling me up, they're anxious and worried about a job interview, and I might say to them, well, again, use prayer. If you want the job, ask your higher power to take away the anxiety about the job interview or the anxiety about getting the job, and then that will make it easier to get the job. And they would say, why is that? Well, I say, well, when the blockage inside yourself, the intellectual or emotional blockage inside yourself is lessened ever so slightly, that makes it more likely that your ability to deal with the situation of a stressful job interview will be easier, and therefore the results will be slightly more likely. Now, these are rational and constructive ways of using something which some people assume is illogical and irrational. But that's only one particular species of prayer. Why would some people assume this illogical and irrational? Because there's a mention of a God concept or a higher power concept. Fine, if that's what they want to believe. But if the way that the human mind works on a subconscious level is to do with associations and connections between ideas, it actually becomes rational to try and leverage this particular psychological phenomena so that you can better achieve something that you would feel restricted in achieving if you had not done the exercise of prayer. Are you with me so far? Can you see what I'm driving at here? If we understand the way that humans work, we can then use psychological exercises of a wide variety of different types to try and help out. And prayer is simple. You get on your knees, you invent a higher power, or you have a higher power, or you assume that the higher power you're talking to is your upper consciousness, or your higher consciousness, or your higher self. And you engage in some kind of mythical experience or mythical dialogue with this imaginary thing. And hey presto, a result of sorts happens. And the result of sorts is a change here in the inner world, ever so slightly. Varying qualities of benefit can come from doing this, and it becomes rational to do this when we understand that the human subconscious mind is a real thing. And sure, there's other ways of doing it, but are they quite so convenient? If I think about what I've read about neurolinguistic programming, there are some exercises there which aren't quite so easy to do, that requires a lot more in the way of planning and preparation than just getting on your knees and asking this alleged spiritual entity to remove something from you. But how many different types of prayer are there? Well, there must be tons. And they must all have their own specific uses in a practical sense. Now, using the word practical in this particular context can be dangerous. The reason it can be dangerous is because you, as a person who's watching this, can possibly make a leap of faith or a leap of belief, whereby you may assume that if you get on your knees and pray to get a job, you will get a job, or if you pray to be cured of your incurable disease, then your incurable disease will get cured. That's not quite what I'm driving at. When I'm saying practical, I mean to say that there is a use there. And one of the attitudes is to generate a rearrangement of some things in your mind. A danger in the exercise of prayer itself is that people can have a change, and they can assume it's therefore due to the higher power concept, and invest maybe a bit too much belief in that higher power concept, and then make dramatic truth claims about that higher power concept, rather than thinking more about the benefits they've got from the exercise and the contents of the exercise itself. I mean, you can do a prayer to fortify your dedication to something, such as talking to your higher power and saying, like, I'm studying for this exam for you, dear Lord, or something along those lines, which you could do all the time, and that can help to make you more dedicated, more focused, and to see the process of studying for your exam as being almost a holy exercise in its own right. You can do prayer, if you do enough of it, to enter into a meditative state of mind and try and find out what has been troubling you for a long period of time, and then let a flash of inspiration appear in your mind. And generating a state of mind which can, for want of a better word, could be described as being open, so that you can then be open to something welling up inside your consciousness or appearing in your imagination just for a fraction of a second, and paying attention to it, and seeing whether that will then help to provide you with some information about yourself. A difficulty arises when you have someone of limited reasoning ability who does these exercises, jumps to a conclusion, and then goes and does something stupid as a result of it, rather than using that particular exercise to try and start a chain of thought going, which they can then criticize as they go along. Prayer can also just be used just to chill yourself out. Because if it is used as a mind-altering exercise through repetition, just like a mantra, it will slow the brainwaves down. I mean, this is scientific fact, basically. Okay? And there's other states of mind. I mean, when I get those sort of spiritual highs, my eyeballs start rolling up on the inside of my head, which happens from time to time. That's probably a gamma wave frequency that I'm reaching. And there's other types of visualization and words which I say which seems to have an effect there to try and bring that about. But that's a different situation than if I'm choosing a prayer and reciting it really, really slowly, and I'm doing it for the purposes of trying that low, slow, meditative, contemplative, concentrated state of mind, which is different to the sort of more euphoric spiritual states of mind which I can then get into. You can also use prayer just to stimulate the ability to visualize when you're doing enough of it. And I've done that with trying to have something which felt like an astral projection experience, and which was quite interesting, quite intriguing. Alright, but it was just an experience, so I'm just going to leave that with you. And I've also used it when doing visualizations of chakra opening. Now, you and I don't know whether chakras have an objective reality. We don't, but I get all kinds of specific sensations. For instance, with the orange chakra, if I visualize that opening up and getting brighter when I'm in that prayerful state of mind, I can sometimes feel what feels like heat flowing in my hands and in my feet. And some forms of mysticism see the orange chakra as being responsible for the rulership of the flow of energy around the body, and therefore there's a Jupiterian association with the meaning of the orange chakra. So all these little things are just, interesting things which make us want to ask more questions, for which of course we have no answers apart from the experiences themselves. And that's just, another way in which you can use the exercise. So you can use it to help you with visualization, with dedication to a particular cause, so to speak. You can use it to remove something from yourself which is getting in the way, such as an emotion or an emotional attachment to something which is holding you back. And also to be able to learn or to stimulate certain specific emotions, such as compassion. I think it's the Buddhists. Is it the Buddhists? I'm not sure, but I think it's the Buddhists who do something called compassion meditation, so they can train themselves into that emotional state. And if I remember what I read a while ago, and yes, I did just read this somewhere, so don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. When the brains of these Buddhists was, checked under various scans and all the rest of it, there are different unrelated parts of the brain which have become fused through excessively using this compassion meditation. So it does change the structure of your brain. So it is a form of transformative exercise. Can we say it is a spiritual exercise? Well, that does depend upon what you mean by spiritual, because the word has been used in a wide variety of different ways. The word spiritual for some people just means believing in ghosts. The word spiritual for other people means believing in God. The word spiritual for other people means being a contemplative individual, or someone who feels a strong level of interconnectivity with other people, or having empathy. So maybe you can experiment or explore those various different things with the passage of time. I mean, maybe I should do prayer to help me to overcome my smoking habit, but I just haven't really got around to doing that. But hypothetically, I probably could use prayer to help me to remove the instinctive, addictive desire. I use it a lot on anger, because by nature I know I'm a very angry individual. That's just one. I'm a human being. Okay, I've got my own issues as well. So I do try and work on that, and that's been a recent development with me, and I've had some benefits on lessening that emotion and trying to understand where it's come from and trying to put that more into perspective. But prayer by itself won't actually do the job just solo, because religious people will have you believe that there's only one this, there's only one that, there's only one the other, and therefore this one thing that they themselves have got an obsession with happens to be the thing that you need, such as prayer could be the one and only thing that you need to reach God, or be a truly religious individual, or stuff like that. If you're doing something like a prayer exercise to try and change something inside yourself, you also have to add to it other things, I would say. And this is my personal opinion, of course. And that would involve writing stuff down, contemplation, maybe talking to a counsellor, and all the rest of that, depending upon how deep the issue you're trying to work with is. So what's the point in you doing that now if you personally don't have any issues? Well, you can't guarantee that you're going to be issue-free in the future. You can't guarantee that you're not going to need something which is going to help you bring you back on track. I mean, I know it sounds bizarre, but I've come to the conclusion that forms of religiosity are actually there to make you more normal. And of course the action of like going to church or praying or doing a self-casting and all the rest of that is just a very abnormal thing to do. So why on earth would it make you more normal? Well, I suppose that depends upon the level of contemplation that you're doing and how your particular form of prayer exercise is affecting your mind, and also your cognition, your intellectual assessment of everything you're experiencing around you, and how you deal with that in a practical way. For instance, if we take my anger issue, I mean, I've not only been praying to have this taken away from me, I've also been praying to insert other emotions such as compassion and empathy, because I've been trying to work out what those things were, writing stuff down about what compassion and empathy is, and incorporating that into the prayer exercise itself, and also with the emotion of love and a few other things. And that's kind of helping in a peculiar way. But without the intellectual exercise, and without trying to change the way that I think, I'm not really having, I don't really have the emotional transformation. So there isn't just one singular way of dealing with issues or allowing yourself to change and grow in particular. So when someone gives you a prayer to do, alright, let's say hypothetically, and this is hypothetically, I'm not giving you an order, just hypothetically, if you were to go to a church because you felt like it, and you wanted to become religious in a particular way, and someone tells you that you've got to go through certain forms of religious exercises, it will be worthwhile thinking about the exercises that you're being given, trying to intellectually and creatively work out what they're trying to achieve there, what changes they want to create within you, and whether that is in keeping with your own goals for your longer term future. I mean, again, with my anger issue, I mean, I'm just talking about this right now because it does me some good. Sometimes it can be useful if I'm trying to dedicate myself to achieving something. I can sometimes use my anger very positively to get the results, but also it can backfire on me as well. And so learning how and when to use it, that can be a difficult thing. So if someone says, if you follow this particular method, you can have all of your anger removed, would I actually want that? No, I probably want it put more in perspective so that I can use it under some specific circumstances. Are you with me there? So yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a journey. It's a bit of a journey because you're going to be able to change ever so slightly and in lots of different ways, different aspects of yourself, ability to be more creative maybe, ability to be more concentrated and focused, ability to visualize better if you so choose. There's no real panacea. I don't think there's any spiritual panacea or religious panacea for any particular problem. I mean, if you think about Christianity by example, there seems to be two different trains of thought which is running through there. Number one, there is a personal growth message there, but lots of people just ignore it. And number two, there's repentance, which is taking people who are sick or damaged in some way and trying to steer them slowly onto the straight and narrow in one manner or another with reference to various alleged sins or things that people can get a bit off balance, and trying to put those into perspective. So those are the two narratives which seem to be going through the Christian cult, which is devoid from the story of Jesus Christ, or indeed reverence, or indeed worship. Bear in mind, of course, that worship in terms of praising a deity is completely different to the original meaning of the word worship, which is worthship, namely bringing yourself to a level of worthiness for some positive concept. It's dramatically different than just getting on your knees and saying, God, you're really, really cool. You know what I mean? And that's something which theistic literalists forget. And in many cases they haven't actually been taught it. Alright? They haven't been taught that. So they're going to try and tell you to do the worshipping the mute idol of Jesus Christ, rather than trying to bring the individual through change to a level whereby they can get over any particular or specific assumed obstacle. But it's up to the individual as to whether they've got that problem or that obstacle in the first place, rather than someone saying, you've got that problem. The Christian idea that all children are inherently sinful it's not a good thing to say. But people who are younger are often more immature than people who are older. You can say that. And if there was a way within a particular cultus to help people grow up faster or better, or to have more emotional balance, that would be a good thing. But how many religious people have the capacity to explain that and express that to other people? I don't think that they have it in them. So there's lots of religions and religious people who are by their very nature not very religious, and would rather say, this is what I want you to do this, do that, do the other, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. And as a result of that, lots of people want to move away from faith. Thomas Paine said his idea of deism in just one of the sections in The Age of Reason, and I read the whole thing, but this section really stood out to me. He said that deism meant believing in God, or acting as if God exists, as well as living in accordance with moral principles. And I think that's a very clever way of expressing his interpretation of religiosity. You know, acting as if God exists. But then it depends upon what the concept of God is to you and how you expand it and grow it with your growth. So this whole religious subject is not simple. It's not clear-cut. And therefore it requires much more thought. I mean, I don't think there is any rhyme or reason to hate religion or religiosity. I think that there is a reason to attack certain anti-rationalist claims. I think there is a reason to attack people who say there is no evolution. I think there is a reason to, well, you know, verbally or in terms of an argument, yes, so obviously not physically. I think that there is a reason to promote education, and that is also important. But getting rid of religion, considering the complexity that I have expressed to you and the apparent good it could do to people if it was actually expressed intelligently, strikes me as daft. Now, as far as how to make it, and in this particular case I'm talking about prayer, work, and when I'm saying work, I mean to assist in creating an altered state of consciousness, you need some kind of mind-blowing concepts. Now, it doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter whether there was a great global flood. It doesn't matter whether there was a creation of the universe by a creator. I would say that these ideas have their place to a certain degree in assisting you in having or building up the ability to have that transcendental state of mind. And maybe it's just within that transcendental state of mind that comes from the more euphoric forms of prayer that change can be effected. Maybe at different rates for different individuals under different circumstances. I mean, if I do a prayer and I use a God concept, and the God concept is creator and master of the universe, that's big. Right? That's big. As far as concepts go, that's pretty big. Because it's a big concept, it's therefore more likely to help me to get into this, you know, blissed out state of mind just for a few moments when I'm doing this mind-altering hypnotic exercise. Doesn't mean to say that I care whether God exists or not, which I don't. But the exercise itself is fascinating. Now, I've been doing all of this mind-altering stuff for years, anything from the mind machines to, you know, standard trance, you know, mantra meditation, self-hypnosis and all the rest of that. So maybe that's why I'm able to do it a little more. And for those of you out there who haven't yet had any form of strange experience, maybe that, you know, that'll just come with time. You've got to allow some kind of changes to occur inside yourself and work out what in particular you want to work on. I mean, it's possible also you could just use prayer to enhance your senses ever so slightly, or to try and improve your ability to understand in some manner artistic messages through, again, contemplation. If I wanted to increase my sense of sound, for instance, my sense of hearing, for instance, I could do a mind-altering meditation exercise and just spend a lot of my time just listening as intently as I can for every tiny little noise, like the moment the fridge clicks on, or the moment that the heating clicks on, and just listening out for that 50 hertz or 50 cycle per second buzz of the electric cables around the house, and to listen to see whether I can hear the wind outside and the cats fighting a couple of streets down and all that little stuff, and just see whether I can learn to feel through the sense of sound more and more things. And that would, hypothetically, through the neuroplasticity and neurogenesis phenomenon, increase slightly the number of brain connections to the sensitive parts of the ears. I mean, this video has gone on far too long already. I'll just quickly say that if you can be well researched enough and intelligent enough and rational and practical enough, you can take this idea of prayer and use it in lots of little ways, and it can all do you an awful lot of good. If you don't get too, literalistic, if you become a religious literalist as a result of it, then maybe just stop for a little while and see how things go. Then do a bit more research and find out more about science and all the rest of it. Anyway, that's just a few rambles from the depths of my mind today on the subject of prayer. Hope that hasn't been too tedious for you. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, favourite and share, and I will definitely look forward to speaking to you again soon. Nick Dutch, signing out for now. God bless.